Good morning. Good morning, everyone. Happy Monday. How is everyone? I'm so excited to be here. Welcome to True North. True North has been a long time coming, creating this amazing podcast, a video and audio podcast. True North is a video and audio podcast focused on three things: overcoming adversity, finding your purpose, and living life authentically. I'm super proud to be here. It's been the journey to this podcast has been arduous and long, but it's timing is everything. I was doing a lot of this early morning, 5 a.m., 6 a.m. talks for the past 2 years, a little over 2 years on Instagram. And I was inspired to take it to the street, take it to a formal video podcast. And so here I am. We learn as we go. And when we are entrepreneurs and we want to start some new endeavors, the only way to do it is to actually make a move. And every move gets better and better and better. So I'm excited to be here. The impetus for doing this is to share my story, but most importantly is to help others who are facing challenges in their life, both personal and professional, and to encourage everyone to live and be their authentic selves. I think a lot of times with social media, with our past, with outside influences, with society, with our families, with friends, with our spouses, sometimes we end up not living our true self, being our true self, and following our passions that really are our underlying passions, our purpose. And so today's episode is going to be focused on finding your purpose, how to find your purpose. A lot of people I know, and I'm speaking from personal experience, we tend to do things based out of ego and based out of, necessity. For example, when I say do things like going after a specific career or a job just to punch the clock, to get the salary, to get the benefits. And I'm not saying that those are bad things, but is it really something that we're passionate about? Is it something that from a long-term standpoint, we want to stay in it, we want to do it? I think it's great. And I think what we get caught up is in the ego voice in our head saying, well, it has a really good 401k, and I'm going to get promoted, I'm going to get my bonus, and next year I'm going to be able to do this, and next year. We kind of make excuses for staying in it and are afraid to make a transition. We really are afraid. And I think that's the ego talking to us. And I think it has a lot to do with self-confidence and believing in yourself and not letting the ego drive your decision making. It's really, really hard because we were raised that way, to be responsible, and I think what happens to us up here in our brains is that we think that if we go after our passion, if we start that startup, if we completely change careers, that we're not going to have the 401k, we're not going to have the salary, you are. And I've talked a lot about this in some of my Instagram videos. And I'll say this one example before I go into a slide. And I've said this before, I'll say it again. I dream in PowerPoint. I have a natural knack of converting a complex theory, a complex idea into a picture, because I feel like it's the best way to convey something in a very simplistic way. And I'm an investor. I invest in startups. I help founders with their pitch deck. And my secret sauce is helping them tell their story about their business, tell their story about themselves, but do it in such a way that captivates people's attention, keeps them engaged, making the investor, whoever they're pitching to, anticipate the next slide, and keeping it really simple with less words, more photos. So I do have a slide that is going to help you have takeaways on how do I find my purpose? What are the steps that I need to take to figure out what my purpose is? And when I say purpose, it also relates to career. And so I'm going to talk about this. But I want to give one example, a story. It's not a personal story. It's a story about a friend. I will not use her name. But it's a story I told before, and I'm going to say it again. I have a friend from business school. She was in a job for 20 years. She's a powerhouse. She's also a mother. She was in a great job, secure job, great. She probably was making decent money and great 401k. And the thing about being in a job for 20 years is typically, and this is why a lot of women don't leave their corporate jobs when they become mothers, is because this is what happens. You pretty much can do your job in less than half the amount of time. If you've been in a job for that many years, you've figured out a way, and you have so much experience that you're able to do your job in less than half the time. Okay. So when you have children, and this is a dilemma that happens with women who, and let me just preface this by saying that even if you have a supportive spouse, the mental load and the flexibility required by women as mothers is a lot more required than the typical father. I'm not saying that fathers can't be hands-on dads. I'm saying there's more pressure in the workplace for us, and there's more pressure at home for us to handle all the unpaid labor, the majority of the unpaid labor, and that takes time. People don't realize folding clothes and going shopping and scheduling the kids' activities and planning the vacations and taking the kids to the doctors, that actually takes time away from corporate, away from your job. So with that being said, this woman in particular, a friend of mine, was saying to her, she was not happy in her job, meaning she wasn't being challenged in the way that she knew she's smart, that she wanted to be challenged. She was looking for something more challenging, more fulfilling. But she said to herself in her head, the ego was speaking to her saying, well, I'm never going to find something more flexible than what I have. If I change jobs, it's going to require a lot more time. I'm going to have to learn a whole new thing. I'm not going to have as much flexibility, and there's no way I'm going to be able to make money. I'm like capped more money than I'm making, especially if I want flexibility. So she was convincing herself in her head that there wasn't any other options out there that were better than hers. So what she did is she hired a career/life coach who actually asked her to reframe that. Why can't you reframe the voice in your head, the ego, saying, what if there is a job that I can make a lot more money, I can have an advancement in a career and have the flexibility that I want and be able to have a great 401k. Start talking to yourself in a positive way in your head every day when you wake up. Reframe the question. If you have to write it down, write it down. Now, one of the things that I've done, and she did this as well, and I actually took the idea from her, so I thank her, is she wrote it down on an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper and taped it up on her mirror in her bathroom. So every single day, she also, in addition to that, into reframing the question, in addition to that, she also wrote down the salary that she wanted to target. Almost like in her mind, she had told her career coach or life coach that she thought it was an impossible salary to reach. And the life coach said, write it down and tape it to your mirror. So every single day she gets up in the morning, she brushes her teeth, and every single night she washes her face, she brushes her teeth. So she sees it. Now, sometimes you actually look at it and read it. And then sometimes it's just it's just there. I have about 4 or 5 pieces of paper taped up on my mirror in my bathroom. My kids are probably like, what is going on? Salary goals. I have life goals. I had 3 life goals up there. I'm going to tell you that one of them out of the 3 has fully come to fruition. The other 2 are on their way any day now. And there's what else did I had some other. I had my salary. I had a bunch of other numbers up on that wall. They're still there. On the mirror. So anyway, to get back to the story, so this woman did this. She had her salary up there, her number that she thought she would never reach, and then her that whole mantra, that whole statement saying like, yes, I can get another job with more flexibility, with more money, that challenges me, that inspires me, that fulfills my purpose, that's kind of who I want to be and what I want to attain. And so then she started networking, and then she started talking to different people. At the end of the day, after all these steps, whatever the 6-month time frame, perhaps, she ends up not only landing her dream job, but on a much higher position with a lot more flexibility. I mean, I think it was a job in California, and she was working from Chicago, and that she had the flexibility of traveling and going when she wanted. And then more importantly, she not only got the salary that had written on her mirror, but she exceeded it. And so I think we tell ourselves, our ego tells ourselves that we can't do certain things. And this has a lot to do with today's topic on identifying and pursuing your purpose. How do you do that? What does that mean? And that can mean anything. And I'll get into it when I throw up the slide. Maybe I should just get into the slide, but it's career. It's really meshing your career with your personal life. It's personal and professional. And I've talked about this before. I wholeheartedly believe that your personal and professional life merges as one. They're not 2 separate entities, because if you want to be happy, if you want to feel fulfilled in your life, it is the merging of both. You cannot keep them separate. And the reason why I say this, and I said this, I think on Twitter this morning, or maybe it was Instagram. And the first thing to do before figuring out what your purpose is, before figuring that out, you have to clean house. And what I mean by that is you need to make sure you are the average of the 5 people that you hang out with the most. You need to make sure that the people, including your partner, are people who support you, are people who encourage you, are people who are positive, are people who are healthy, are people who are encouraging, and that they do not diminish your light. Because I'm not saying that you can't pursue your passion, pursue your purpose with a toxic partner or people in your life. It's just going to be that much harder. It's going to take that much longer. You're not going to be as happy. And I don't think you're going to be as successful, because they're going to have bad influences on your demeanor, on your everyday life, on your healthy habits. And it's just not going to be fun. So the first step and I'll get into the slide, the first step that you have to do before you even start the process of figuring out, like, what is my purpose? Why am I here? What do I want to do? How am I going to feel fulfilled? Is you need to clean house. And this is online friends. Like, if you feel like you're following toxic people or they're making toxic comments, you can unfriend them or you can just mute them. Honest to God, you can't, and they will hinder you from keeping a positive attitude and staying focused on your purpose. And then especially with a partner, I mean, I know there's a lot of people who are in toxic relationships and it's really hard to get out of them. It's probably the number one thing that's the most challenging. But from a long-term perspective, you have to figure out a way of what's healthy, and whether or not they can have the discussion with you to figure out, or whether or not they just can't even hold a conversation about it. You have to figure out a way to make sure that you are surrounding yourself with people who support you in your career, in both personal and professional life. Okay, let me bring up the slide because I want to give you some tangible takeaways. I have to reach over and get it. Hold on one second. is it? Here it is. Okay, here we are, and I can barely read it, but I'm going to lean in and try to read it. Let me get my glasses. Hold on one second. Okay. Let's start off. Let's kick it off. How do you identify your purpose? Okay. As you can see here, I've got 3 circles, and then there's the overlapping area of identifying your purpose. The first step in identifying your purpose is self-evaluation. And typically what we do, and I've done as a CEO of Blazing Babes, it's a female founder community that I launched 7 years ago. We've done a lot of work with women in career transition, from moving from corporate to startups, launching your own startups, scaling your own startups. A lot of these women want to start companies. They don't know how to, they don't know where to begin. So one of the things that we do, we've done several workshops on personal brand, identifying your purpose, and we do self-assessment, and there's various self-assessments. And one of the books that I always reference that I used when in my 20s, that I don't have with me today. Usually I have a book a day to recommend. But I'm going to reference it here. It's called What Color is Your Parachute? What Color is Your Parachute is a book that identifies your skills and your hobbies. So basically there's words, but there's also exercises that you actually have to go through. So when I was transitioning from investment banking, out of investment banking, I was miserable. I worked 4 years in investment banking right out of college, learned a lot, but it was great for me from a financial standpoint, understanding numbers and how to raise money, how to manage money. It was great, especially coming from a liberal arts background where the only class in finance I took was economics. And it wasn't a business undergrad. It was just a liberal arts undergrad. However, what I did that summer, I remember laying on the Cape Cod beach in my bikini. I read what color is your parachute, and I did the exercises. And so what it did, it actually identified that I'm passionate about fitness, sports. I'm an athlete. I love working on teams. I love collaborating. I love leading. I'm very analytical. So it basically matched me up with an industry, which is the fitness industry. And so then it allowed me to hone down to specifically, talked about location was important to me because I didn't want to leave Boston. So I researched all in Boston, like what are the fitness companies? I mean, there's Reebok. At the time there was Reebok. There was New Balance. I think there was FootJoy, which is I think in northern, maybe it's New Hampshire. But I was looking at footwear. I looked at the footwear business because I researched the companies. I noticed there were a lot of former athletes that worked there, that were executives. I mean, and I wanted to be in the Mecca, and I wanted to also instead of working for a services company, just like banking is, where you have you have clients, and you work with a client, and then you're on to the next client. So like, I did not want to be in consulting because I wanted to be part of a company, like a family. I wanted to feel like I was part of a family, and family was really important to me. And so when I also evaluated the culture of the company, so I knew Reebok and New Balance. New Balance has come a long way since back in the 90s, but Reebok was really, at the time, the culture at Reebok was more fitting to me. It was very team oriented. I went and visited, and it was, the campus, it looked like a college campus. It was actually the one in Canton. Was it Canton? I think it's near Blue Hills. It was and the other thing that was important to me this book, and maybe through some self-evaluation, is the environment. I needed to be in a building where I felt at home. So when you do a self-evaluation, you look at all the elements that make you happy. And so when you're happy at work, when you love the environment and it feels teamy and it feels like a family, you're just going to want to get up and go to work every day. And I wanted to pursue something that I was passionate about. So working in tech and innovation, that's another element that I wanted exposure to. And that was in 98 and 99, which tech wasn't even like tech. I think they called it .com. So What Color is Your Parachute led me to match my hobbies with my skill sets. And also the self-evaluation that I did a bunch of different ones. Also, enabled me to understand I wanted to feel like I was part of a family. And so that's step one. Then the step two is, and no one really realizes this when you're thinking about a career or figuring out your purpose, but personal experiences actually drive your purpose. And what I mean by that, and typically it's through life experience. People, and you don't have to be old to have a lot of life experience. You could actually have significant life experience at a younger age. However, I think a lot of times when we go through hardships, if one of our kids gets sick, God forbid, or if a parent dies, or if we go through a divorce, or if we maybe we had a rough childhood, that we experienced some injustices in our childhood, whatever it is, typically it's linked to your purpose. For example, you could be, let's say, and it doesn't have to be a hardship. It could be something that you enjoy. So let's say you love music. You've always wanted to learn how to play guitar. Your dream would be to be in a band, but you're a stay-at-home mom, and you don't want to go back to corporate. So what do? I'm going to start playing in a band. And then you start practicing and you get better and better. And then you take guitar lessons, and then all of a sudden you're a band, and now you're getting paid for the gigs in your band. It starts with, what is your joy? What is any hardships? Like, what lights you on fire? What gets you up? Like, if you didn't even have to get paid, what would get you up in the morning? So it's not about the paycheck. It's about what it lights you on fire. Gets you up in the morning? What ignites your soul? And typically, if it's something that you experienced or a joy that you're passionate about, and so typically it's emotional. So no one really likes to talk about emotions, but whatever it is, your personal experience, it's something that drives your emotion. Like it's something, a lot of people who are immigrants are like, I have to support, people who are immigrants in this country. Like, I want to do nonprofits. I want to be able to serve the underworld, whatever. It's something that, because maybe your parents were, and they struggled, and you saw the struggle. So that's going to drive your purpose. Again, your purpose isn't nonprofit. It isn't like a non-money making. It is money making. And I think what people fail to realize is that when you are driven by your purpose, the money will come. I'm going to say that one more time. When you are driven by your purpose, the money will come. Okay? So the third component of how do you identify your purpose is impact. And again, this relates to the other two attributes. What can you offer to the world that is going to help other people? Again, this is not a philanthropic thing. This is a for-profit thing. But what I'm trying to say is, you have a gift, you have experiences that are unique to yourself, that you can actually impact others in a positive light. What can you contribute? Again, if you want to be in a band and your music and you bring joy to other people, that is impact. That is impact. And you're doing what you love, and you're making money. Again, but the core root is what brings you joy, what gets you up in the morning that doesn't even require a paycheck. When you go with that as the force of your purpose, the money will come and you will help tons of people. And so at the end of the day, the impact is your legacy. God forbid you leave this earth one day. What are people going to remember you by? What are they going to remember you by? They're going to remember you that you were an amazing musician, that you brought joy to their lives. They're going to remember that, you were female empowerment. You helped so many women, and every single thing that you touched was about empowering women. What do you want to be remembered? What do you think your kids are going to be proud of you for? This happened to me. I'm going to say this story, and then I'll continue to talk about this. When I was dropping off my daughter at camp, this was several years ago. I think it was 2016. I stopped at the donut shop, of course. Before we had some time to kill, so why not grab a donut? And I think my mom was with me, and then my son. At the time, I think he was, he was probably 9. Okay. 9 or 10. And so I remember waiting in line to use the bathroom, and there was a bunch of other parents came in the donut shop. It was like literally the cutest like a country store donut shop, nothing fancy, kind of like a dive. And we were we were waiting in line for the bathroom. And I was talking to a father who was from New York, and his daughter, he was with his wife, and he's just dropping his daughter off at that camp in Maine for the first time. And we were just chit-chatting, and I said, "Oh, what do you do?" And he's in venture capital, which is the area I was getting into. I said, "Oh, great. What are you doing?" And he's like, "Well, tell me about what your founder, you want to move into venture capital. Tell me about your startups that you launched." So I was telling him, and my son was, you know how when you're talking to an adult and your kid is like pulling on you, like trying to interrupt, mommy, pulling it, and you're like, not now. Like, I'm talking. You see, I'm talking. That was me. Okay. Saying to my, like, kind of, he's pulling on me. And I'm like, what does he want? Now, I'm going to flash back to the year prior. A year prior to that, the startup that I launched, Blazing Babes, we did a charity event and raised money for Syrian refugees, children who were fleeing their homes in Syria because their buildings were burning down. They were boarding rafts on the coast of Syria and literally blow up rafts with like literally a motor tied to it, and filling the rafts and wearing these life vests and pouring into the boats. I think they paid $1,500 the families paid $1,500 to actually get in the boats and going all the way across the Aegean Sea into Greece. So we raised $10,000 and built a playground for these Syrian refugees on one of the islands. I think it was Pipkos or Lesbos. I can't remember. And donated it. I worked with my sister, who launched the nonprofit with a few other women. And the playground's there now. I don't know if it's still there, but it's a movable playground. It was built by Catalytic Action. They're a nonprofit that builds mobile playgrounds for underserved communities. They're amazing. Amazing architects. Amazing company. So anyway, I had done that, and part of the fundraising that we did was a silent auction where I used my entire network, all the executives, Reebok, Life Fitness, Radio Flare, everybody who I knew in my network who had product, who had services, a lot of hit companies, a lot of fitness companies, and they donated product and services. I talked to a lot of athletes. I think Kerry Wood from the Wood Family Foundation, he donated a bunch of tickets. A couple people from the Blackhawks, a couple of my Blazing Babes whose parents work for, the Bears. Lots of tickets. We raised tons of money. It was gambling all night. But anyway, I had to collect all these goods. And so they would be shipped to my house. And literally my entire living room, I had to move furniture, was all this product. I mean, a Life Fitness bike. I mean, it was crazy. And I didn't know that my kids were, I knew my kids were watching me, but I didn't have any discussions with them. They never asked, what are you doing? And so flash forward to this day where I'm like getting my donut, my son's pulling on my jacket, and he's like, mommy. And I'm like, stop. I'm talking. You see, I'm talking. He's like, Mom, tell him what you did to help the children. And so what I'm saying is, when we are focused on our purpose, when we give back to others, when we are focused on impact, when we help others, we are being an example to others around us, not just our kids that see it every day, okay, but to the outside world. The outside, we are without other people telling you, you are inspiring other people to also do the same. So for me, I think, and for all of us, those three attributes: self-evaluation, what are you passionate about? Personal experiences, what hardships have you overcome? What brings you joy? And then impact, what kind of legacy do you want to leave behind? How do you want to help others change and follow in suit? So that those three elements will help you identify what your purpose is. I don't know if that's helpful, but I'm hopefully it is. But those three things, and again, I do highly suggest for those who are kind of lost and maybe not happy in their job, and they really are at a point in their lives where they really want to find their purpose, I highly suggest you look at what color is your parachute. They come out with new editions every year. I just think it forces, especially if you're someone that actually needs to write things down and have things broken out for you, it really forces you to do the exercises and makes you think differently than how you've been thinking about your life. And then I also suggest doing some self-evaluation forms in terms of what lights you on fire. Anyway, let me bring it back to my image. Hold on one second. Hey everyone, I'm back. Hopefully that was helpful. I really, really want people to pursue their passion, and this podcast is part of that, is to help people figure out what are they passionate about, what is their purpose, and how to actually go about doing that. We'll probably do some more work, videos on the how to. This week we are going to cover personal brand. That's a really, really big buzzword and something that I'm pretty much an expert on. I love doing it for other people. I've done it for all my Blazing Babe members. I've done it for friends. I've done a workshop on personal brand at University of Chicago, and I do it for myself. And it's really, really important. It includes social media. It includes a lot of different things. And then there'll be some other topics that I'll do this week. Just stay tuned. But please subscribe to my channel so you can get prompted on when I go live. And any questions, please feel free to leave them in the comments. But really, this podcast is to help other people find their purpose, overcome adversity, and do it in an authentic way. Because if you're not authentic, those two things aren't achievable. They're just more difficult. And one of the things I do want to talk about, maybe it will be this week, I haven't decided, is what does it mean to overcome adversity, and how do you do that? I think a lot of us who go through challenges in our life, it's really, really hard to maintain. It's really, really, some of the challenges are really, really hard. So what can we do to keep ourselves grounded, to keep ourselves healthy while we're going through a hardship? I'd really like to do an episode on that, and I'm just trying to structure it in a way so there's tangible takeaways. Anyway, typically what I would normally do is bring a guest speaker on. I'm not doing that until I kind of line up. We just got going last week, but I definitely will bring a speaker on to be able to talk about the subject who's an expert. And then at the end of every single episode, I have rapid fire questions, which I love. They're random questions. They're totally unrelated to the subject of the day. It really is to get to know the guest speaker more, or whoever's speaking, and it just adds a lot of flair and excitement to the conversation, because I don't know what these are. I draw them from a hat. I don't even know what the subjects are. They're random, and I'm all about transparency and authenticity and off the cuff and unplanned things. I think it's more fun. It adds more fun to life. But we always end with rapid fire. So let's just get to it, right? You ready? This is my favorite part. Okay. Which leftover are you most excited about seeing in your refrigerator? Pizza? Can I tell you? I'm always putting leftovers in, like chicken or whatever. I mean, maybe I would do chicken on a salad if there's leftover. But half the time I throw it out. I know that's such a waste, but some stuff does not taste the same when it's leftovers. It's like Chinese food. I don't eat Chinese food, but I will. If I will eat Chinese food is the best hangover. Like the next day hangover. Sorry, it's not like I'm just saying, I'm being honest. But heated up Chinese food is, you need it like fresh. But I like pizza. And I like cold pizza. I say pizza. And I don't really eat that. I don't even eat pizza that much. I did eat it this weekend with my kids, but I normally don't. Okay. In what year would you say you changed from childhood to adulthood? Oh my God. Wow. For me, it's been a slow progress. For me, I think I've always been a late bloomer, hands down. Hands down, I've been a late bloomer. I'm not talking about physical. Sorry, my dog. I think it's just maturity, not maturity. And I've said this I've had this conversation with my ex-husband before. I actually can't even have a conversation with him. I've had this conversation with my mom or my dad about maybe not, because they may think that I don't know. I had this conversation with somebody. The first time I started feeling like more of an adult was when I was 20 and I was studying abroad in Seville, Spain. I remember I was in another country with a different language. I mean, although I was fluent in Spanish, it's different when you're like, you have to survive in the language every single day, especially when you're 20. Because I had not, we never spoke Spanish at home fluently, even though both my parents speak Spanish. It was mostly English. So it wasn't, and plus it was like Mexican, Spanish, Latin America Spanish is not the same as Spanish from Spain. It's not completely different, but there's a lot of differences. Anyway, I remember two like scary things that made me feel like an adult. One, waiting in line to opening up my bank account. I had to figure out all the words and figure out in Spanish. I was 20. The second thing where I was so stressed out was my parents were coming to visit during Semana Santa, which is basically spring break, which is coming up now. It's the Holy Week. And it's a huge week in Seville, Spain. There's La Feria, which is this big carnival. They have all these tents. It's like basically like flamenco dancing. Sevillanas, and there's horses. It's beautiful. God, I hope they have it now. I mean, I do want to go back. That's kind of my on my bucket list to go back there. Big tents with all the bullfights and bullfighters, and it's unbelievable. So my dad, who's Mexican, and he grew up going to bullfights. They still have season tickets to the big ring in Mexico City. And the last time I was there, I think it was 2019. I went to the bullfight and sat in his seats with my aunt, my mom, two of my aunts, my uncle. Yeah. And we saw, who was it? He's famous. We saw, who was it? What's his name? He's famous in Spain. I can't remember. Basically, what was his name? Jose? Is it Jose? Enrique Ponce. No, yes, I think his name was Enrique Ponce. He's famous. He's an older bullfighter, but he's really, really good. And I know there's some people on here who probably are very anti-bullfighting, and this is not to be. So please don't take offense. It's part of a cultural thing. But anyway, what was my point? I forgot what I was talking about. What was the question? I went on a tangent. Oh, my dad said to me, I was in Spain. I was 20. He's like, here's money. I need you to get tickets to the bullfight in Spain because so-and-so is playing for the whole week. He's like, these are the dates I want. And he couldn't do it online. Back then it was like 1994 and you can't do it online. You actually had to to get certain seats, you had to actually wait in line. And so he's like, you need to say this Soli Sombra and like all these special things. Like I was sweating that I was going to like get the wrong seats because they're expensive and it's like a big deal. And you don't want to mess up when your parents come and visit. So again, I don't know, that was my first time I actually felt like an adult was when I was 20, because I had to basically live in another country in a different language. And then that was kind of scary for me. I mean, that may not be scary to other people. It was scary for me. And so I say when I have these conversations with my parents, when I have these conversations with my former husband, when I have these conversations with people in general, I want to give my kids the opportunity, not that I want them to be adults too young, but I want to slowly give them more responsibility earlier than I. Like if it were up to me, I said to my daughter, who's 15, I'm like, when can I send you to Europe? Like you need to go to like another country. Like, do they do that in the school? Like, do you want to do, what is it called in the summer? What is it? The Habitat for Humanity. I'm like, exposure. It's not just going to Europe or going to Latin America. It's a new environment where you're away from your parents. You're like helping others. You're learning a new culture. You're learning a new language. I just sent her, I feel like a helicopter parent. I mean, literally, I just sent her on this summer. She was 14. I sent her on the airplane alone. I mean, maybe some people do that when the kids are younger. Some kids are younger and they do that. I mean, and then I don't know why I made it such a big deal. It's actually not a big deal. She wasn't even sweating it. I was the one that was sweating. So I feel like in our heads, we make up these things. This goes back to what goes on in your brain. It's really not a big deal. Sending your kids home back and forth on an airplane alone, they have a companion. You pay like $200. American Airlines, they have these tags. You literally are never alone. You're never alone. I don't even know if they sit next to you, but you're never alone. It's great. So I don't know why I was making a big deal. But anyway, the more things I think we can get exposure to, the younger, in terms of letting the leash go as a parent, like for your kid, the better off your kid's going to be in the long run. I wish I had that exposure to another country earlier, like in high school, junior in high school, not in college. I think everything is early, because then I think I would have been less scared later in life to try things, to try new things. I think the more experiences you have younger, they're going to make you less scared. You're going to be braver later on. And not that I just think what happens is you hesitate to try new things when you realize that it's actually really not a big deal. It's like it took me forever to do this video podcast. I don't know why I was making a big deal. It took me forever to do this other endeavor that I'm doing in venture capital. I don't know why. Why was I in my head thinking I couldn't do it, or I'm not prepared enough. I don't have this enough. I think we talk ourselves out of things. Anyway, I'm ranting. Let's go to the next one. Okay, next question. Do you have a surrogate mother or father figure? No. 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 Actually, this morning I was thinking to myself how much I love my dad. I love both my parents. But I miss my dad. I just saw my dad at Christmas. My dad's 80. My parents are on vacation. I really miss my dad. I mean, I miss my mom. I talk to my mom all the time. My dad is, I don't miss my mom because she's always around. I mean, I talk to her a lot, and she texts me a lot. My dad doesn't. He's like, it's interesting. They're yin and yang. My parents, not only, they've been married for 53 or 54 years, not only they're yin and yang, okay? She's like the Spitfire, he's the chill. Now, it's interesting. They not only were married, like lived together in the same house, they also worked together for all the years. My dad is an immigrant. My mom's a second generation Italian. They met in a hospital, a New Haven hospital. She was a nurse. He was a doctor. He barely spoke the language. But my mom noticed one day, this is amazing, where he was she was observing in the room. The nurses stand there with their little hats. Back then they wore those little white hats that did nothing. They just looked cute. And she was standing in the room, and she saw him talking to the patient, and she saw him put his hand on the patient, the sick patient. And she said that was the one thing she noticed, his kindness. And it was like over at that point, basically. Like I think she found out it was his birthday. She made him a cake. She left the cake. She didn't even know who he was. Like, she didn't even talk to him. She left the cake. She felt bad because he was like lonely, and not lonely, but like no one, he was an immigrant. No, he just came and he didn't know anybody. He had no friends. And so she made the cake, left it in the nursing station. And as a thank you, he's like, I'd like to take you out on a date. And so that was history. And then the story from that on, because my mother grew up poor, and she was in Waterbury, Connecticut, and he's a resident. He was working like crazy hours, and he would, like, when you work around the clock, you have to work around the clock, and he would fall asleep at a red light. That was the story. So I don't really, I don't have a surrogate mother or father figure. My parents are my parents, and they've been great. Tough love environment, mostly from my mom and my dad, but a lot from my mom. And I've talked about this before. I will talk about it again. It's impacted me positively and negatively. But yeah, my parents are my parents, and they're on vacation now. And I asked them if I could go and sleep on the couch and join them on their vacation. They're enjoying retired life. Okay, next question. This is hilarious. Oh my God. I just talked about this. What's under your bed right now? Oh my God. Do you guys want to know what's under my bed? Under my bed right now is wrapping paper, Santa's wrapping paper to hide from my kids. And my kids are like in middle school and high school, and no one talks about it, but I'm like, Santa still exists. So I hide the paper so they don't. And you know what the other thing is? I tend to, I never wrap the regular, I want to make sure the paper they've never seen before, because that means Santa, it came from Santa. So my Christmas wrapping paper is hiding under my bed. Also, what's under my bed? There's probably tons of like dust bunnies under my bed. What else is under there? Oh, there's some signs. I'm being honest. You know those signs I just told you about, the ones I put on my mirror? There's some old signs. I actually have an old pie chart that I drew. This is hilarious. Because I dream in PowerPoint. I'm all about pie charts. I'm all about graphs. Anything academic, anything analytical. When I got divorced, I talked about this on another podcast. I drew a pie chart with all my must-haves that I want in a partner. My old one is there, my original. I saved the original. The original one had 7 attributes. The one I have now is 17. I'm kidding. But that's under my bed. The reason why I know that is because I just looked. Okay. I don't know which. Next question. What time is it? I have to stay on track. We've got 15 minutes. If you could go on a risk-free adventure, what would it be? Ooh. That's a really good question. Oh my God, can I tell you what I want to do? It's really, yes, I'm going to tell you. So I'm an investor. As I mentioned before, I invest in health and wellness and female-founded startups. But I was talking to a male founder. This was probably over 6 months ago. He had a startup. It's definitely not in my, I don't even know who would invest. It would be a real estate investor, and I don't know many. But he had an amazing startup. I'm not a camper. Everyone knows I'm very like, I need a hotel. But when my kids were little, there was a local beach near us that they would have these beach campouts, and we would bring everything like s'mores, and they'd have a big bonfire. You bring all your food, you bring down your tent. There's a tent, you pitch a tent on the beach, whatever, near the waves. And so I would go and enjoy all the festivities, the music and the bonfire. And I would leave at midnight, like where my ex-husband and the kids would stay on the beach and sleep. And I'd pick them up the next day. There's no way I'm sleeping on the beach. I did it one year, and I didn't get any sleep. But anyway, so I'm more like, I'll go, and then as long as it's glam, then I'll do it. But there's a guy that I talked to, and he has a high-end I don't know if is it called clamping or clamping? I don't know what it's called, where he builds high-end tree houses for luxury guests to stay in, and they're movable. You can actually, and it has running water. It has like a bathroom. You don't have to get down and go to the bathroom. Like, it's crazy. And a refrigerator, gorgeous. I mean, and it's it's high up in the tree. They're big. And, it was during COVID, actually, I talked to him. There was a high demand for everyone wanting to get away in the wilderness. And because of depression, they wanted to be in nature. And so it's unbelievable. I can't remember the name of the company, but it's unbelievable. So we were talking about, he wanted investment, and we were talking about it, but it was unbelievable. He had so much data about nature and about the industry, the camping industry, the high-end luxury camping industry. But I think I'd want to do that. I would literally call him up and say, how do I book one of these things? I literally want to wake up and just be in nature. And it's quiet. You're away from everybody. I mean, there could be animals all around you. It's scary, but it's fun. I would do that. I love that. I miss that guy. I should talk to him. Okay. Here's the next one. What would you like to be known for? I mean, I'll tell you, this is how serendipitous, right? This goes back to identifying your purpose. What would you like to be known for? This goes back to the legacy. What if you, God forbid, you left this earth, what do you want to be known for? And God willing that you have positive impact. You have left positive impact on somebody else. Multiple people. The more, the merrier. As many people as possible. What would you like to be known for? I mean, I like to be known for women empowerment, and not just women empowerment, multiple things under that umbrella, which includes policy change for women in the workplace, disclosing salaries, so there's salaries equal pay, like a caregiving act, like the job security, so you can actually care for your kids and care for your aging parents. What else? Helping women who have been abused in relationships, domestic violence, being able to give money and help with programs to how to give women access to resources and tools to get out of the predicament, because a lot of the times women are at a financial disadvantage, physical disadvantage, and they can't leave a abusive relationship. Financial empowerment for women, teaching women how to manage money, how to save money, how to invest money. Female founders, giving access to capital to women who are revenue positive, have a great idea, and they're just getting no's because the majority of the venture capital space is male dominated, and men typically don't relate to women at all, most likely, and they're more scrutinous with women for whatever reason. Typically, men who have wives that have stayed home and don't see women as equal partners. Those are the men that typically give female founders the hardest time. So I want to be known for anything under the sun when it has to do with women empowerment. And I'm not anti-guy. I actually want to team up with all the men who support women and view us as equal partners, and actually view us as leaders and change makers. But I know that's not the majority. Hopefully it will be the majority of men. But I want to be known for making change. And I also want to be known for isn't just about me and my ego. It's about, I want to empower other women to be leaders. So I want to look for the gems out there that can take the torch and also do the same that I'm doing. So I want to invest in women that will make a positive impact and help more women, bring more women through the pipeline. And so I think there's a lot of women out there who are amazing and they're great leaders, but they don't bring other women along with them because they're in fear that those women are going to outshine them. That's not what I want to do. I want to be known for bringing other women who are change makers, who are smart and who are not in their ego, but want to actually do the same. That's what I want to be known for. And by the way, the last thing, part of that, I want whatever I do, whatever I touch turns to gold. But whatever I touch and whatever I put my time into, I want it to be sticky. Meaning, like, I don't want it to just be a quick thing and then it goes away. I want to get into policy and do policy change, because I know it's a law. It's sticky. It's when I leave this earth, it's going to stay and help future generations of women. It's going to help my daughter. It's going to help her daughter. And all my friends' daughters and my network's daughters. It's really, really important to me that it's sticky. Okay, this one is girl power, and then I'm going to end on this. Jacinda Ardern. She's the Prime Minister of New Zealand and is the world's youngest female head of government, having taken office at age 37. Wow. And she's the second female head of state to give birth during her term in office. Unbelievable. The first was Benazir Bhutto in India. I studied Benazir Bhutto. I did a huge thesis paper on Benazir Bhutto. I took international relations in college, international government. Oh my gosh, I love Benazir Bhutto. Here's her quote, Jacinda Ardern. Quote, "I never ever grew up as a young woman believing that my gender would stand in the way of doing anything I wanted." This is the thing, guys. I'm Latina. When I grew up, my parents raised us, my sisters and I'm the oldest of 3. Girls can do anything. There's no boy job, girl job. So when I was, and I think it has a lot to do with sports too. My dad played soccer growing up, like barefoot in Mexico. He's like, okay, I don't have sons, but my daughters are going to play soccer. We all played soccer. We were all athletes. And back then it was the early 80s. Nobody was playing soccer. I think my Mexican girl cousins were like, why are you playing soccer? That's a boys' sport. Because Mexico's like, in terms of women empowerment, it's, I think, 10 years behind. I think it's catching up, but it's 10 years, Latin America in general. Hopefully it's catching up. But I remember because we were the only family that was in the States. And so they didn't get it. Now it's like obviously completely changed. But back in the early 80s, yeah, we were raised like it was an anomaly. It was an anomaly. And the other thing is, so we were taught that girls can do anything. And this is credit goes to my parents. Credit 100% goes to my parents. There was like, I remember my mom did this. I remember we lived in Needham, Mass. I grew up in Needham, Mass. And we were at a starter home in Needham. And then we moved to another home. This other home, it was a beautiful home. Trust me. But we ended up, my parents, I forgot what kind of heat. It was like electric heat. Back then, I think electric heat's really expensive. And so the way that to heat the house to make it even like more affordable is they put in a wood stove in the basement. I don't know if anyone has a wood stove, but they put in I don't know if this is a thing. It's kind of dangerous. I can't believe I grew up with a wood stove. Oh my God. Now that I think about it, it's kind of dangerous. I had to wear these gloves and you put the wood in, you could get burned. Anyway, I'm like, I don't know. So there would be a truck that would dump a cord of wood for winter, I think twice a winter, in the backyard. So all this big pile of cordwood is just in a pile. It's not even stacked. You can't just leave it in a pile because it's going to get moldy, and you have to bring it in because of the snow and everything. So on the weekends, my sisters and I would have to, and we had a bulkhead, when you have a bulkhead. So my dad would fill up the wheelbarrow full of the wood and then open up the bulkhead and dump it down the stairs. And we would be at the bottom of the stairs to catch the wood and then stack it in, crisscross so it could breathe, so it dries up, because you can't burn wet wood. It's not going to work. And so we would be in the basement all day Saturday, like a couple Saturdays in a row. And you know what my mom would say? Like after out 5 hours of stacking wood, it would be like 5 p.m. She's like, okay, everybody upstairs, you guys are going to help me set the table and make dinner. There was no there's no boys. So everything that we did, there was no gender tied to a role. And so I think that's why I went into investment banking. I remember at Bowdoin College, where I went to undergrad, I didn't know what I wanted to do. And I remember figuring out what I wanted to do. And I was friends with guys and I was friends with girls and at Bowdoin, and most of my girlfriends weren't doing investment banking, but my guy friends were, and the majority were. And I'm like, oh, I guess I do investment banking because that's what everyone's doing. I literally didn't even know what it was. I mean, I knew, but I'm like, oh, that's the thing. Back then, you don't know what you're doing. You just do you just have to get a job. And I'm like, oh, I guess I'll get a job in investment banking. I just kind of went with the flow, but I didn't see it as a guy job. And there were hardly any women in investment banking back then. It was like, I don't know, 5%, 10%, really low, 20%. I don't know. And so I just did it. And the same thing throughout my entire career. I don't stay away from an industry just because it's guys are in it. I don't care. I view myself as an equal. I'm probably even smarter. Like I literally, it's not, there's no differentiation. And I think that has a lot to do with my parents and how they raised us. Okay, here's the question. We're going to end on this. What are you glad you learned from your family? I mean, this very subject. Actually, also, the importance of character and the importance of character. Values and morals. I would say this. I think what happens to us, I'm going to be very transparent. I think I was raised in a bubble, meaning when you're raised in and again, it's not a negative thing. It's fine. But I always was naive thinking that everybody's like me. Everyone has values and morals. Everyone's kind. Everyone's good. Maybe it's the community I was raised in Needham back in the 80s. Everybody was such great families. There's no toxicity. There's no greediness. There was no hurt, pain, people taking advantage of you, deceiving you. None of that. And I don't know if it was the bubble I was in. I don't know. I did not get exposed to that at an early age, and not until after college and maybe even after business school, much later in life, when things happen that it's almost an eye-opening experience that you can't believe that this hurt, this pain, this deception, this lies, the manipulation, the people and I don't mean to talk about it, but I was always thinking that everyone's like me. Everyone was raised like me. Everyone has parents like me, and they don't. And it's not their fault. It's just circumstance, right? And maybe they were hurt. Maybe that's all they were exposed to was deception, lies, toxicity, violence, just that bad hurt. And so that's all they know. They think that so they are walking around this earth always on thinking someone's going to hurt them. So they're thinking like in chess that they're just going to they think 4 steps ahead that person's going to hurt me. So I'm going to protect myself rather than someone like me who's always like, everybody's good, everyone's kind, everyone. And so that could be being raised in naivety could hurt you a lot, could hurt your heart. You could get burned a lot. But I honestly think my parents taught us to stay true to our values no matter what. No matter if for the arrows, the bricks, the punches, the hurt, the deception, the lies, even if you're facing adversity, and this is why this podcast is about overcoming adversity, even if you're getting the punches, even if you're getting the darts, even if you're getting the arrows, you have to maintain your character, your morals, and your values, because you can't assume that everyone's going to hurt you. You have to believe that there's love and kindness and good people in the world. And when you stay true to your values, you are going to attract those people. And I think that's one of the things that my family, even my sisters, I always turn to them as my support system because they believe in the same thing and they live their life that way. And now I only want to surround myself with people who have that same mentality. I only want to be with people who have that same mentality. I will say no to people who don't have that same mentality. And I think a lot of us go into relationships, whether it's personal, professional, with that, this person has my back, this person's going to support me. And what really is hurtful is when you find out that it's not that way. And healing from that hurt is a journey in itself. Whether you're in a marriage, whether you're dating someone, whether it's you thought it was a business relationship that it was working out, whether you're a founder and you have a co-founder, whether you're running a venture capital fund and you have a fellow GP you find out X years down the road that they're deceiving you and you need to have a venture capital divorce. I mean, it is hard to heal from when someone else hurts you. And you could be in a 20-year marriage and someone else hurts you. It's hard to heal. And so I think when you feel hurt by someone, it takes a lot of strength to maintain your values and your morals. And even if you feel alone and lonely, even if you feel hurt and crushed, it takes a lot of strength to stand in your power and to make sure that you stay true to who you are and your character. That's what my family taught me. And I will always take that with me no matter where I go. And it actually makes you feel like a really amazing person. It is the best feeling in the world when you know you've gone through the storm and you've still maintained your character, regardless of the punches, regardless of how bad the storm was. It makes you feel so powerful because you stay true to yourself. And so I encourage, and we'll do maybe this week we'll do an episode on overcoming adversity and the importance of maintaining your morals and values and your character, because it will get you through the storm, but it will also make you that much stronger later after you've been through the storm, and you can be a role model for others. Anyway, this is True North. Thank you for being here. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel. I'll be announcing later on what tomorrow's episode will be, 9 a.m. Central. Tune in live. You can watch it recorded. Eventually, we're going to go on audio. I'm just learning this. I'm learning this business, but this is part of the empire that I'm building, and one of them is to help others. And this is the way. This is my way of doing it. So I normally leave a book for everyone on my shelf here, but I don't have it. It's What Color Is Your Parachute? I highly suggest you order it. They come out every year with new editions, especially if you're in career transition or you're looking for your purpose. It's a great way to kind of get the ball moving in the right direction. And hopefully this was helpful. Later, guys. Have a great night. Bye.